Hi, everyone. My name is Lydia Martinez, and I am here today with a few different people that are based here in Salt Lake City and, are very, very concerned with affordable housing, accessibility to housing, and solving some of the challenges that come with housing our homeless citizens and population here in Utah. And I would love to have each of you introduce yourself. Tell us about your organization and why affordable housing is a key concern for you. Ty, please kick us off here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. My name is Ty Bellamy, and I am the founder of Black Lives for Humanity movement. It's an organization that actually has a laser focus on the unsheltered community here in Salt Lake City. We provide short-term care for them on the street, anything that they need to remain safe, healthy, and protected. But long-term, we are advocating for, of course, permanent housing. Quality mental health care and quality health care, medical care. And this is really, I want to say it's a slap in the face, but it's almost expected because Utah continues to disappoint when it comes to addressing homelessness. Um, they continue to show that they really don't care about this vulnerable population of people. They want them out of the way, but they don't want to provide a way for them to move up and to move away. Nobody wants to be out here on the streets. We are watching them close overflow shelters. We are watching them gripe about having to open overflow shelters. We are watching them walk around and actually serve notices to the encampments that they are pushing them. I was just at an encampment about half an hour ago. They'll be pushing another one. Last Thursday, they simultaneously pushed four. With all these people out here on the street and nowhere to go, they continue to minimize places for them to go. They continue to reduce space for them. And I don't understand what the problem is. It's just really sad when you're continuously having to humanize humans to humans. And I don't understand why Utah just will not get it together. People are literally dying out here on the streets, and they just don't care. Um, I was actually, for once, I was kind of proud of Utah when they stepped up and asked for that money. I thought, okay, finally, people are starting to wake up. They're opening their eyes. We're getting momentum. They're listening to us. They're starting to understand. And then once again, they pulled their typical common move, which is to say, just kidding. We really don't care. We really don't want to be there for you, and we're gonna take away as much as we possibly can. This problem is not going to go away, and this is a problem that Utah actually they contributed largely to when they closed down the road home shelter downtown. When they pulled that Rio Grande project, they created the situation that's out there by them minimizing space for them to go. They continue to create this misery out here and this suffering out here. And I guess that as long as it's not them, they're going to continue to do it. So
Yeah, thank you so much, Ty. And just so everybody's aware of the specific thing that Ty is mentioning here is last week on Friday, we had three legislatures kind of slash a budget for deeply affordable housing from about 127 million to 55 million, which is a massive cut. And so that's specifically what Ty was referring to. Bryson, I'm going to kick it over to you and invite you to, tell us about you and your organization and what stakeholder role that you're filling in this conversation.
Hi, thanks, Lydia. And as you said, I'm Bryson Garbett, and I'm the chairman of Garbett Homes. And we build homes in Utah. And I've been doing home building for 47 years, and have had quite a bit of experience. And one thing that I think is important for us to keep in mind is that the only way to build affordable housing is if it's subsidized. A builder may want to build affordable housing a lot, but they still have the same costs that any other builder has. They have to pay for the land, they have to get entitlements, they have to get the workers, they have to pay the workers. And so in the end, if if we have affordable housing, it's because there is a subsidy involved.
And and Bryson, we've seen the price of land, labor, raw materials, um, and property values just skyrocket more so in the past couple of years than any other time.
And it is not only is it land and labor materials, but also it's harder to get approvals. So it takes longer to do a project. The longer it takes to do a project, the more expensive it is. The if you want to make it so that subsidies go farther, then you would have higher density in housing, and higher density is harder to get to. So there's a lot of forces that are working against being able to make housing affordable. And that's where the government steps in. And the state government, particularly, their appropriations that they're getting are really the only ones that are uh, can make a difference in this, because they're the ones that federal money, as much as I understand it, federal money is channeled through them, and then they channel it through either communities or through programs in doing it.
Thank you so much for that really unique insight from the perspective of a builder. Tara, hi there. So delighted that you're here. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization.
So my name is Tara Rollins, and I work for the Utah Housing Coalition, and we are a nonprofit membership organization, and we're all about increasing housing people can afford. And yeah, I mean, it's tough out there. You know, for years and years, I was the only one on the Hill going, "Hello, over here in the corner, we have a housing issue." And year after year after year, you know, we got our standard $2.2 million into the Only Walker Housing Loan Fund. And because that was the match to the federal dollars. And so, you know, in bad years, we didn't get cut because they needed to match the federal dollars. And so had a few years where extra funding was given to housing, but not in a way, in a strategic way, I would say. I think, you know, Bryson hit in the nail on the head. It's such a process to get something on the ground. And especially when you're looking at doing something affordable and you have 10 different resources that are going in that resources. You have 10 different lawyers and you have, 10 different accountants. And so it's very, you have to have the passion to be doing affordable housing because there are a lot of hoops to jump through. So our membership ranges from service providers, homeless service providers, all the way up to American Express, who invest in. And so we have for-profit developers and everyone in between, advocates, government. And so we have a lot of interest in, housing people can afford. So I want to also mention that there was $100 million set aside by the governor to build affordable housing. So beyond the 128 million that was set aside to address deeply affordable housing and case management, there was another $100 million, and 50 million of it was dedicated to the rural areas. And the rural areas have a really hard time competing with resources that we have in the state because they need smaller, like they don't need 100 units. They need like maybe 15. Some areas only need 5. And so when you're looking at, it's apples and oranges. And so there was 50 million set aside, and then another 50 million set aside to help with bonding. And so, we really felt like that was a really good start. And right now, the state is flush with dollars. At no other time have they been in a better financial situation to be able to make this investment. And this investment would come back tenfold, not just in the housing industry or the economy of, help in building it, but also in the economy for tourism because of our low wage jobs,
Yeah.
as well as people's health care, as well as education. And so investing in housing is so important because opportunity starts at home.
I love that you said that, Tara, and we're going to come back to that in just a minute. But Tim, I wanted to kick the ball over to you and have you introduce yourself and what it is that the Other Side Village has been working on for the past year almost.
Thanks, Lydia. It's a real honor to be here with Ty, Bryson, and Tara. All three have been warriors fighting for the underprivileged and those disadvantaged and those who haven't had the access to many of the amenities that many of us have had. And it's a real honor to be able to be with them, and just a sincere gratitude for the work each of you have done in your respective spheres to fight for those who may not have had a voice, and fight for those who need some extra help to get on their feet. I'm part of the Other Side Academy, and a year ago we launched a separate project called the Other Side Village, which is an attempt to take eventually up to 400 people who are on the streets or who haven't been able to get into housing, and provide wraparound services, but do it in a community setting that allows us to help them with whole person change. And we just had I see Preston joining us, and Preston is one of our partners in this with Valley Behavioral Health, and they'll be providing the clinical services for many of those on the streets, struggle with mental illness, and many of the homeless solutions that are provided really haven't addressed some of the deep issues that need to be addressed. And instead we put them in jails, or we put them back on the streets again. And Preston is also, his organization has been fighting this fight for years, and Preston can speak further to that. But we've been going through that regulatory process that Bryson talked about. It's laborious and costly and expensive, and we'd hope that we'd be able to get some of the costs of of building this significant community through some of the ARPA monies, and we feel like the benefits, as we've done a cost benefit analysis, that the returns for the state and for the city are overwhelmingly positive, that tens of millions of dollars in benefit to the state in a return. And so we've been very interested in seeing this bill pass, and appreciative of those senators and legislators who have been fighting for it.
Thank you so much, Tim and Preston. I'm so glad that you were able to join us. Please tell us a little bit about what are some of the challenges that people in Utah are facing right now due to a lack of affordable housing.
Yeah, thanks, Lydia. Preston Cochran, Director of Operations for Adult Services Programs at Valley Behavioral Health. It's nice to see Tara Rollins here. Tara and I fought the fight many years ago when we were working with the foreclosure crisis. And I was in a different role when I was the director and CEO of Fair Credit Foundation, when we were helping homeowners get caught up with their payments who had lost work and couldn't afford their homes. And we were receiving hundreds of calls daily, trying to triage and help families across the state. And we did very successful in that initiative. And this is a little bit of a different dynamic on the flip side when you look at affordable housing. So in general, Valley Behavioral Health has about 300 units. Some of those are specifically for those individuals who've been chronically homeless, some that have been through treatment, rehab. And our housing programs are supportive housing programs. So that means we couple that with case management and treatment services. So I like to think of it as really a staircase approach. So if you have someone that's coming out of the shelter, or they've been living on the street, which we have lots of those clients, you put them into transitional housing, you add wraparound services, treatment, med management. Eventually they're going to move into permanent housing. When you don't have that permanent housing on the back end, the pipeline gets clogged. And when that gets clogged, that extends the amount of time people are going to experience homelessness or stay in that traditional housing. So either they'll progress or they'll slide backwards. And so it's, when you think of it like that, when you couple the trauma-informed care and case management and everything else, you've got to have affordable housing as part of that. That's the best recipe for solving homelessness.
Yeah.
If someone doesn't have a safe place to live, how can you expect them to get ready to go to work, raise their family, things like that? We have what's called storefront. It's a day room for clients to come in, shower, cook a meal, store some belongings. And, it's amazing every day to watch people come in and they'll take a shower there, get ready for work and go. They're living on the street. They don't have any other options. They may be folks who are resistant to going into a homeless shelter or a resource center or any sort of treatment. But we do get those folks at some point in the continuum. They do come around. It just, for some, it takes longer than others.
And Tara, I heard you wanting to chime in there, so please take it away.
I think one of the things that Preston said that was so important is the fact that we need permanent supportive housing, and it needs to be managed by someone who is an expert in who they're serving. And going out into the market is not an option, because they can't stabilize themselves. A lot of people can't stabilize themselves, and they end up being evicted, and eviction stays on your record forever. So at this point, and so it's just so important that we have these dollars to be able to invest in these type of facilities, buildings where people can be successful. They stabilize for a longer period of time so they can move on. Some people may not move on, but yet it's a place for them to be able to be safe and surrounded with options that they may need on a daily, weekly, monthly basis to, keep them stabilized in their housing. So I just want to point out the big difference in going out into the market and permanent supportive housing. So.
And Tim, please go ahead.
There's a question for Preston. I was astounded, Preston, when we were talking before, that at the length of which some of the people who had been homeless, they come in and receive services and are ready to move on for affordable housing. But do you want to talk about that, the length of time that some people are there, because there is no option for them once they are ready to go up to that next step?
It's true. Yeah, Tim, thank you. We have clients that have been residing in some of our housing for upwards of 10 years or more. And we have not increased rents in who knows how long. We just can't. They can't afford it. And so if we continue to ignore this kind of swelling deficit of affordable housing, not only will our city and state face mounting problems keeping it and attracting workers. When you look at the average wage of a case manager at any of the homeless service providers, it's anywhere from $16 to say $20 an hour. They can't afford to live here, let alone work here. So for me, I've got open positions I'm trying to hire as fast as I can. I just don't have people applying. One, because they can't afford to live here. And if they do, they're bunking up with 3 or 4 other people, and they may move on, find a different job, or it's hard work. It's not easy. But if we can't attract workers, then we're driving business away. We're driving employers away. And this is going to continue until we really feel, like I said, you got to fill that pipeline.
And I really hear what you're saying when you're talking about us driving workers away and driving business away because people cannot afford to live here. I want to kick it back over to Bryson as a business owner himself and as an entrepreneur. How is this lack of affordable housing and the barriers that are in place for that, how is that impacting our community in being able to continue to grow our economy?
It's a huge impact on it. Having housing for employees, for families, and it's important also for a community to have all types of housing, as it is to have all types of families. It's just essential. But the costs now are it's just impossible for a builder to build affordable housing. And there are different types of costs in housing. You have very expensive houses, and you can have moderate, but moderate now, middle in Salt Lake is is approaching 500,000 for average home prices.
And so those people that Preston's talking about that are making $16 to $20 an hour, a moderate home is not even achievable.
Not for sale, and I don't think that would even be for rent. You'd have to have 2 wage earners to be able to do that.
Yeah.
It's a very
That's not even
difficult
Salt Lake
situation.
County. That goes north and south. Utah County, north, Davis County. I mean, I've got staff that drive a ways because the housing may be more affordable an hour or so away.
Yeah,
That's right. Zip codes do matter. And when you look at a housing wage and how much someone needs to make, it's amazing. People are surviving because right now I'm going down to Iron County, and their median income is like less than 30,000. So that's 50% of AMI. And when you look at the jobs that we do have in our state, we have thousands and thousands of jobs that do not pay a housing wage. And so when you look at those,
because they're in hospitality, or they're in we have so many of those hospitality jobs, the lower income, the jobs that used to be considered kind of starting wage, but that
right.
people
Think about downtown Salt Lake and how many chambermaids that takes.
Yeah.
Think about the dishwashers. Think about the people that are going into our buildings at night to do janitorial work. Think about the lifty up at Alta or the ski patrol. They make what, $17 an hour. I mean, there's low wage jobs everywhere you go. And, we need to, and when we talk about rent, that doesn't even count the fees that people are paying on top of the rent. And so
like application fees to even apply to get an apartment, so many of those extra things. Yeah.
So we're talking about valet trash, and people are paying the landlord's property tax. I mean, it's all written out in the lease, what they're paying. So it's extremely more expensive than people know.
And oftentimes water, sewer is not included in the rent.
Yeah.
Correct.
So I want to kick it back over to Ty just very quickly. I want to be sure that we're including everybody in the conversation here. And so Ty, as we're looking at this budget getting cut so drastically, how is that going to impact the programs and our fellow Utahns? Because remember, our homeless population, these are citizens of our state as well. They are people. and they deserve to be acknowledged and treated as such. And very often they're not. So talk about how this cut will impact like programming and assistance specifically.
Well, once again, it's taken away opportunity for them to get on their feet. We do have a lot of unsheltered people out here that have full-time jobs. They just can't afford to get into a place. You've got people out here that are aging out of foster care, and they don't have or they don't have any work experience yet. And so people are not wanting to even hire them because they don't have the experience. Or if they're hiring them, they're paying them at a lower wage because they don't have experience. You've got people out here that have made mistakes in life, and they have a criminal background that doesn't pass the traditional criminal background check. And so they can't find jobs because they're felons, or if they can find jobs, again, they are on the lower end of the totem pole as far as pay because they feel like they don't deserve a living wage because they've made mistakes. So when you reduce, and here's the thing, I said from the gate, the 128 million that they were asking for was a start, but it wasn't enough, and we were going to have to ask for more, and now you want to take that away. So once again, when people are cutting budgets and cutting things, they're always going to take away from the quote lower class citizens, or from the unsheltered, or from marginalized groups. And it's not fair that we continue to get stepped on. And I say we because even though I'm not unsheltered, I'm a part of this community. I advocate for this community. I love this community. And it's hurtful when 1 minute you're telling them, look, they asked for 128 million, there's something. And then you go, hey, I got to get on this phone call because now they've cut it down to 55 million. And I'm trying to, so it's hurtful to see their faces. And it's like, wait, they really don't care about us. They really don't. And when I want to jump back to a few minutes ago, you guys were talking about how, people, they act a certain way, their behavior changes. When you have shelter, when you have a place to lay your head, when you can lock the door behind you, when you can leave and go to work and come back and your home is still there, your clothes are still there, your food is still there, when you can do that, that does something to a person when they have stability. Last year, because of these abatements, I actually set up a camp. We called it Camp Last Hope. I set up a camp and I lived with them for over a month under the freeway, under I-15. And I had 19 people voluntarily go cold turkey off of spice, off of methamphetamine, off of heroin, off of pills that they had been abusing for years, because they said, Ty, you've made it safe. It's quiet, it's stable, it's clean. And so they were able to deal with their traumas on their own and come off the narcotics that they were using to numb their pain and to try to forget their trauma. So to have stability, to have somewhere where you can go and call home, that helps somebody. They'll do it by themselves if they have a place to call theirs. It doesn't take much space. The other side village is going to have tiny homes up to 450 square feet. That's not much space for some people, but it's enough for these people who have been out here in the rain, in the snow, getting sexually assaulted, getting beat. I stood in front of a guy that pulled a pistol on somebody last week. And instead of saying, oh, it's his fault, he shouldn't have done this. No, I understand. People are breaking out here. People are broken out here. And now, once again, you're taking another opportunity. You're reducing another project that could help them stabilize mentally, emotionally, psychologically, financially. What are you doing? At some point, we've got to stop saying, well, we need money for this land. We need money for this. The property over people mentality in Utah is disgusting. We need to donate the freaking land so that people can build. Stop making it so hard for these zonings to happen. If I want to build a community, if Tim wants to build another one, we shouldn't have to go through all the hell and high water to get the zoning. Make it happen. Let's go, because it's housing for people. I understand that there's builders out there and they have jobs and they need materials, and this is where their market is that they're building for. But at some point, can we start looking at shipping containers? That structure's already built. Let's get some land, drop it on there. Let's insulate them, let's drywall, let's put the electrical, let's get the plumbing, let's do something to get people off the street. Because once those people are stable, once they get jobs, not only are they going to contribute to the economy, and building is going to help to boost property value, but then you can start to afford to build the more expensive houses now, and you'll have people that are out there to help that will be able to afford them. They're not going to be the builders forever. They're going to progress in life, and they're going to want bigger homes because they're going to want to start or expand their families. But
No,
Even
we have to
even
think
when you,
outside of we have to
Ty,
think outside the box.
even when you get land donated, like in the case of the village, um, even when you do containers, even when you do certain things, it's not enough. You still have to have subsidies.
Oh, absolutely.
Those are a form of subsidies, but it takes a lot of work. And
Oh,
it
I understand
really,
that. But here's
to,
the thing. Somebody has got to be willing to examine what work needs to go into this, and we've got to make it happen. Times have changed, and
so
we've got to start to think outside of the box.
one of the really interesting things, Ty, and I'm hearing what you're saying, you know, I've had the chance to spend some time personally in some of the homeless encampments and talking to people. And then I've also had the chance to travel with the people from the Other Side Village and the Other Side Academy to look and see some of the models that some of the other cities are employing, like in Austin, Texas, and how well that's working. And so, Tim, I want you to talk about that just a little bit, some of the things that we've seen, that it's truly, truly working and it's a viable solution. You're muted,
One of the concerns, and it's completely understandable, is the state and other government entities have poured a lot of money into services in the past, and they're feeling like we're not seeing it change, and so they're saying, why should we continue to pour money? And I would say, one, I think the money that has been spent does help. We have, on the last count, we have 1,800 permanent supportive housing, from what I understand. But we still have another 600 to 800 people on the streets that can't access. It's incredibly difficult to find housing that you pay $450 for a month, to be able to pay that kind of rent. It's especially in along the Wasatch Front. So we've seen some of these other communities like Community First. We've been to Eden Village in Springfield. We've been to Kansas City, and they've been able to create not only housing, but a community of supportive services that help take care of people who need some extra help, who need that dignity, who help create opportunities for employment, and are living self-sufficient, productive lives, and are being able to be members of community. That's what we're hoping to bring to Salt Lake, and we can do it with great partners like who are on this call.
And it incorporates those things that everybody's been talking about, that permanent shelter and the dignity that comes with that Ty was talking about.
And the supportive services.
Wraparound services that Preston was talking about. It incorporates the real pressing need for long-term solution that Tara has touched on. And also with Bryson, the need for solutions where the city, the subsidies are happening so that the building can happen, and the streamlining of the permits and things like that. And so that's what I'm hearing everybody in this room say, and how those pieces need to come together. And ultimately, the other thing that I'm hearing is that the funding is the key, and why this cut was so devastating, specifically for everybody in the room, not for them personally, but for the people that they're trying to help. I want to just very quickly do a quick 1 minute around the room and hear any final thoughts that you have. And then if you'd ever like to be a guest individually on a live stream and tell us a little bit more about what it is that you're doing, please know that you will be very, very welcome. We'd be happy to do that as well. But Tara, please kick us off. Any final thoughts on this specific topic?
Yes, I had some exciting news. I'm going to back out a statement that I made earlier that evictions stay on your record forever. We've been working on a piece of legislation and it just passed the Senate. It's already passed the House, so it's going to help people expunge their eviction records. And so, yay, we need that to stay alive. So more to come on that, but if you can, if you're listening, please reach out to your legislator, the leadership, and tell them how important it is to have housing people can afford in our communities, and what an asset it would be.
Yeah, absolutely. Preston, final thoughts from you. You're muted there, sir.
That's key what Tara said. We turn people down every day because of background checks. They've been evicted, they've got it on their record. They clean things up and they just can't, there's no landlord that's willing to touch them because of that. So that's huge. When you think about, the way I think about affordable housing is when you couple that with ongoing support, that is the cure and prevention to homelessness. You need a stable place to live before you can address or focus on any other life debilitating forces. You need a stable place to live. You can't do it without that. You can't provide treatment if they're out on the street, and they are. The drug dealers know where they are. You look at the opioid crisis and everything else. They will target them. They will find them. They will track them. And because of that, they cannot get out of that cycle. They need their own safe, stable place to go.
And so that stable house becomes unstable without those additional services, essentially.
Yeah. Everybody needs that, regardless if you're unsheltered or not. We all need that.
Ty, final thoughts from you, please.
I mean, Preston, I love you. You just said what I was going to say. What I was going to say is the reason why Utah has failed and they're flushing money down the drain and down the toilet and throwing it out the window is because they haven't provided the services that go along with it. You cannot take somebody from the street, put them in a house and said, we did you a favor. We gave you a roof over your head. Goodbye. It doesn't work like that. You have to address their traumas. You have to address their addiction. You have to, in a sense, I mean, you have to handhold. You have to show them how to live inside again. I've even gone when some of them have received housing and gotten a place. I've gone and stayed with them, some a couple of days, some a couple of weeks, some even a couple of months, because it's scary. They're in a place by themselves when they're used to being around a lot of people out in the encampments. They're now within four walls, and they're hearing noises, and they're because there are different noises from what they would hear through a tent. You need to have wraparound services. And there was something else that he said I wanted to touch on, and I can't remember what he said at the end. But at the end of the day, if Utah wants to get it right, if Utah wants to heal and stop hindering progress, what they need to do is they need to give the money to the people who know what they're doing. You need to support us because we're out there. We see the trauma. They always talk about unsheltered people, how they want to live like this and they don't. And like Preston just said, the drug dealers are loving this. They are loving this because those are their customers. As long as they can keep them strung out on drugs, as long as they can keep them addicted, these guys are going to stay down in the pit. And no matter what you do, if you don't do it with wraparound services, it's going to continue to fail. This is why I fight so hard for the Other Side Village, because they will not be left alone in this process of healing. They will not be left alone. They will have the support that they need, they deserve, they desire. Come on, Utah, wake up. Because if not, we're going to have a bigger crisis on our hand. That's what's there now, and it's not going to get any better. We can't close our eyes to this. We've got to pull our head out of the sand, and we've got to start to allocate these funds in the correct way.
Bryson, please, final thoughts from you.
There are many challenges in building homes, and being able to do the density that we need, the location, to get the zoning, to get parties involved. It's all needed, but also funding and subsidies is critical. And we haven't really we've talked about subsidies, and people may think in their mind, well, like Ty said, giving money to groups, but that may not always be the best thing. The state can get involved in providing housing, and in that way, they're not subsidizing competition for housing.
Yeah, that's another really unique perspective. Tim, final thoughts, wrap up for us.
Well, again, it's a real honor to be on this, and so appreciate everyone contributing. Like I've said, many of you have been in this fight for much longer than we have, and we honor and respect the contributions that each of you have made to taking care of those who are disadvantaged. Our commitment is to create permanent housing that with these wraparound services in a safe, clean, orderly environment, creating employment opportunities, creating an opportunity for people to have that dignity, to have that respect. And Utah is already spending, over $100 million a year in trying to solve the consequences of homelessness. But this is an opportunity to strike at the root of homelessness. And that's why I think all of us have felt so strongly about that this cut is short-sighted, that the investment of this extra money into dealing with some of the root causes of homelessness will have benefits and really help save the state money rather than cost them extra money.
Yeah, and in the long run, it's hurting the whole state. If you treat people like they don't matter, they're going to act like they don't matter.
Yeah.
Hello. And then you're going to keep crying about people acting like they don't matter. So you need to invest in the people. You need to invest in the people. They're your constituents. They're your neighbors. They're your relatives. You've got to invest in the people if you want change.
And so let's talk about what I want to do as a final call to action. Those of you that have been listening in, some things that you can do: share this video and tag people in it that need to hear about it. Something else that you can do, and we will put this in the comments, is you can reach out to the leadership in the legislature and let them know that you do not think that this budget should be cut. I mean, literally slashed, and that this is a priority for you. And it's an opportunity for you to share your strong feelings about this specific issue. We're going to put that contact or that information for how to contact people right here in the comments in this live stream. And then please do share, talk about it. Talk about, who it is, what you want, how you're seeing the impact, and, really emphasize to them how important that is to you. We've got a couple of professionals here when it comes to actually lobbying our government. Any final thoughts? Preston, Tara, you've been working on this quite hard for some time. Anything else that people can do that I missed?
I mean, the thing that people need to do is just be honest, respectful and honest to why this is important to you and why it's important to our community. Because sometimes it's hitting us personally, and sometimes it's you're seeing it in the community, and you also see where communities are addressing it other places that are being successful. Just be truthful and be respectful.
Perfect. And don't just sit back.
Correct.
Don't do nothing. Please do something.
Absolutely.
So Lydia, I served in the legislature for 2 terms, and to hear from a constituent has a huge effect on somebody. So don't hesitate to talk to your senator or your House member, or to both actually, and tell them to encourage leadership to put that money back into the budget.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me. I really appreciate your time today. We're going to go ahead and wrap up. But once again, we're going to invite each of you to join us on a separate live stream where you're one of the individuals, and we can have a more in-depth conversation about what you do. So thank you again, everybody, for tuning in today. And everybody has their call to action. Please reach out to the leadership in our legislature.
Absolutely.
Thank you.